The first time Emily Carter asked me to drive her home, she was standing under the soft yellow lights outside a wedding barn, holding her heels in one hand and my suit jacket in the other. Not wearing it. Holding it. Like she had forgotten it belonged to me, or maybe like she wanted me to notice that she had kept it. "Ben," she said, a little breathless, "can you take me home?" I was 33, old enough to know when a woman's voice had more in it than the words she was saying. I wired houses for a living, mostly old ones with stubborn walls and bad decisions hidden behind plaster. My own life had become the opposite of that. Clean, quiet, predictable. Work, groceries, laundry on Thursdays. After my last relationship ended, I had gotten very good at not reaching for things I might not be allowed to keep. Emily was 29, a freelance photographer with a laugh that made people turn their heads before they knew why. We lived in the same apartment building in Columbus, same floor, 2 doors apart. For 8 months, we had been elevator small talk, borrowed coffee filters, and the kind of almost friendship that got carefully folded away before it could become something else. Tonight, though, she was looking at me like the folding had stopped working. Behind her, music thumped through the barn walls. Our friends were still inside celebrating, slow dancing under string lights and pretending not to watch us through the windows. I glanced at her bare feet on the gravel. "You mean your apartment?" She hesitated. That hesitation did something to the night. "My parents' place," she said. "In Lakewood." I blinked. "Emily, that's 2 hours away." "I know. You want me to drive you 2 hours home from a wedding reception?" She lifted my jacket slightly, as if offering it back and keeping it at the same time. "You said earlier you weren't drinking." "I also said I liked the mashed potatoes. That wasn't a binding contract." Her mouth twitched. "So the potatoes get commitment, but I don't?" There it was, that light little joke that landed a little too close. I looked away first because I was still pretending I was the sensible one between us. "Why Lakewood tonight?" Her smile faded just enough for me to see the truth under it. Not all of it, just the edge. "My sister's staying at my apartment," she said, "with her husband. They surprised me, long story. I could sleep on my own couch, technically, but—" She glanced back at the barn. "I don't want to go back there and be the extra person in my own place." I understood that more than I wanted to. There are certain kinds of loneliness you can handle in silence until someone says them out loud. "Okay," I said. Her eyes came back to mine. "Okay? Okay. I'll drive you." She let out a breath that looked like relief but sounded like something softer. "Thank you." I held out my hand for the jacket. She looked down like she'd just remembered it. "Oh." She slipped her arms into it instead. Then she froze. I froze too. The sleeves swallowed her hands. The jacket hit the top of her thighs. It looked better on her than it ever had on me, which seemed unfair considering I had paid for it. "I can give it back," she said, but she didn't move. "No," I said too quickly. "You're cold." Her eyes stayed on me for one extra second. "Am I?" That should have been easy to laugh off. I opened the passenger door instead. The drive started safely enough. She tucked one foot under her knee and scrolled through music on my phone like she had been doing it for years. She rejected 3 of my playlists with the ruthless confidence of a woman who had seen my soul and found too much classic rock in it. "You listen to this while you work?" she asked. "Sometimes." "No wonder your houses don't talk back." "My houses are polite." "Your houses are terrified." I laughed, and she smiled toward the window like she was pleased with herself. For the first 30 minutes, we talked about the wedding, the cake that leaned left, the groom's uncle who danced like he was fighting invisible bees, the flower girl who fell asleep under a table with a dinner roll in each hand. Then the highway stretched out, darker and quieter, and the conversation thinned. Emily rubbed the cuff of my jacket between her fingers. "I almost didn't ask you," she said. I kept my eyes on the road. "Why not?" "Because you're careful with me." The words came out soft, but they filled the car. I could have pretended not to understand. Men do that when they are scared and want credit for being decent. Instead, I said, "I'm careful because I don't know what you want." She turned her head toward me. I felt the weight of her looking before I let myself glance over. "What if I don't always know either?" she asked. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Not much, enough that she noticed. For a while, neither of us spoke. The radio played low. Her perfume had settled into the leather and warm air between us, something clean and sweet that I knew I would remember later when I had no right to. At a red light outside a sleeping little town, she reached over and brushed a piece of lint from my sleeve. It was nothing. It was not nothing. Her fingers lingered near my wrist for half a breath before she pulled back. "Sorry," she whispered. I looked at her. "For lint? For making this weird?" It was already weird. She laughed, but it caught in the middle. "That's comforting." "I mean," I swallowed. It was already not exactly innocent. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Emily didn't do dramatic. But the playful part of her went still, and what was left was a woman sitting close enough for me to see the tiny gold flecks in her eyes, wearing my jacket, hearing the sentence I had not meant to say out loud. The light turned green. Neither of us moved for a second. A car behind us gave a polite little tap of its horn, and I drove on. By the time we reached Lakewood, it was nearly 1 in the morning. Her parents' place was a narrow blue house 3 blocks from the lake, with white trim and a porch swing that moved lightly in the night breeze. Emily unlocked the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "I should warn you," she said. "My mother decorates like every room is expecting company from 1998. I wire homes built before indoor plumbing. I can handle floral wallpaper." She smiled, then opened the door. The house smelled faintly of lemon polish and old wood. Family photos lined the hallway, Emily missing 2 front teeth, Emily in a graduation gown, Emily standing between her parents with a camera around her neck and that same half-guarded smile. I set our overnight bags by the stairs. She had packed 1 small duffel from the trunk of her car before we left. I had packed nothing because apparently I was a man who could drive 2 hours on impulse but not think about a toothbrush. Emily caught me looking at the staircase. "What?" she asked. I loosened my tie. "So, where am I sleeping?" The blush came fast. Not a little color. Not a polite embarrassment. A full, unmistakable blush that started in her cheeks and traveled down her neck until she looked away and pretended to study a basket of folded blankets by the wall. And suddenly I knew. She had thought about it before I asked, maybe in the car. Maybe before she ever walked up to me outside that wedding barn holding my jacket like a decision. "There's a guest room," she said. "Okay," she bit her lip. "Technically," I waited, "it has boxes in it." "How many boxes?" "A confident amount." I took 1 slow breath. "Emily." She looked back at me then, and the humor was there, but so was something much more unsteady. "I didn't ask you because I needed a driver," she said. The hallway went quiet around us. Her hand was still on the banister. Mine was on my loosened tie. We were standing 3 feet apart in her childhood home, too old to pretend we didn't know what that sentence meant, and too careful to step toward it without being invited. Then she came down 1 stair, making herself almost eye level with me. My jacket slipped off 1 shoulder. I reached out to fix it before I thought better of it, and my fingers brushed the bare skin near her collarbone. Neither of us moved. Emily looked at my hand, then at my mouth, then back into my eyes. "Ben," she whispered, "if you're going to be careful with me tonight." Her voice thinned. I waited because whatever came next had to be hers. She swallowed. "Don't be so careful that I think you don't want to stay." For a second, I forgot how to be a man with restraint. Not because restraint left me. Because Emily had just put her hand on the door I'd been leaning against for months, and asked very softly if I was ever going to knock. I let my fingers rest at her shoulder, warm skin under my knuckles, my jacket sliding another inch down her arm. "I want to stay," I said. Her breath hitched. There, no joke, no escape hatch, no polite neighborly version of it. I watched the words land on her face. "Good," she whispered. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed me. It wasn't a dramatic kiss, no crashing together, no desperate movie music. It was almost shy at first, her mouth brushing mine like she was asking one more question. I answered by leaning in, one hand at her waist, the other sliding carefully to the back of her neck. She made the smallest sound. That was what nearly undid me. Emily Carter, who could tease me into silence in an elevator and make a room full of strangers pose like they trusted her, softened against me in the dim hallway of her parents' house like she had been tired of holding herself upright. I kissed her again, slower. She tasted like champagne and wedding cake frosting, and when her hands came up to my chest, they didn't push me away. They curled into my shirt. The old house gave a creak above us. We broke apart like teenagers caught after curfew. Emily stared at the ceiling. I stared at Emily. Then she whispered, "That was the radiator." "It's June." Then it was a judgmental ghost. I laughed under my breath, forehead dropping briefly to hers. Does the ghost have opinions about overnight guests? Oh, definitely. But she's from 1998, so she's mostly upset about my eyebrows. That made me laugh harder, and the tension loosened without disappearing. It changed shape, became something we could hold without being burned by it. Emily stepped back, smoothing a hand over her dress, though nothing about her looked smooth now. Her lips were pink. My jacket hung from one elbow. Her eyes kept darting to mine and away again, as if she couldn't decide whether to be brave or embarrassed. I decided for both of us. "Show me the confident boxes." She blinked. "What?" "The guest room. Let's assess the situation." Her smile returned, crooked and relieved. "Very practical. I contain multitudes. You contain a toothbrush?" "No." "Then your multitudes have gaps." She led me upstairs. The guest room was worse than advertised. Boxes didn't just occupy it, they had colonized it. Cardboard towers labeled Christmas, Taxes 2009, Mom's Fabric, and Do Not Throw Out surrounded a narrow bed like a defensive formation. A ceramic goose wearing a bonnet sat on the pillow, guarding the territory. I folded my arms. That goose knows things. Emily stood beside me, biting her lip. In my defense, I haven't lived here in years. You said confident. This is imperial. I can move some. At 1 in the morning? She looked at the bed, then me, then the goose. I guess there's the couch. We both knew there was a couch. We had passed it downstairs. Floral, short, hostile to spines. I'll take it, I said. She frowned immediately. Ben. What? You're 6'1". 6 foot. You told me 6'1". I was wearing boots. She gave me a look. You are not sleeping folded in half on my mother's rose print couch because you're trying to prove you're noble. I'm not proving anything. You kind of are. I looked at her then. Really looked. The playfulness was still there, but under it was worry. Not that I'd do something wrong, almost the opposite. She was afraid I would back away so far that she'd feel foolish for reaching, so I said, I can sleep on the floor in your room. Her eyes widened. With blankets, I added. A pillow. A legally respectable distance. Her mouth trembled with suppressed laughter. Legally respectable? I don't know Ohio law on childhood bedrooms. My room has glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Then I'll be supervised by the cosmos. She laughed, and the sound eased something in my chest. Her room was at the end of the hall. It was smaller than I expected, and more Emily than I was ready for. Pale blue walls, shelves of old paperbacks, a corkboard with faded photo strips and ticket stubs, a camera manual open on the desk like she'd left yesterday instead of years ago. Above the bed, sure enough, tiny plastic stars dotted the ceiling. Emily stood in the doorway while I took it. This is embarrassing, she said. No, it isn't. You're looking at my high school self? She had good taste in books. She had terrible taste in boys. I turned. Had? The word left my mouth before I could soften it. Emily's cheeks colored again, but this time she didn't look away. She's improving, she said. A silence opened between us, warm and dangerous. I set my tie over the back of her desk chair. Emily. Ben. I'm going to make up the floor before I kiss you again. Her eyebrows lifted. That sounds like a threat. It's a survival strategy. Yours or mine? I stepped closer, just one step. Enough that she had to tilt her chin up. Both, probably. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. That's annoying. I've been called worse. I don't want worse. The words were quiet, but they changed everything again. She sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking younger without seeming childish, just unguarded. She rubbed her thumb along the hem of my jacket, which she still hadn't given back. My last boyfriend, she said, was very good at wanting me when it was easy. Parties, weekends, cute photos. But if I needed something inconvenient, he made me feel like I had asked too much. I stayed where I was, close, but not crowding her. That why you almost didn't ask me tonight? She nodded. I was standing outside with your jacket, she said. And I thought, he'll say yes because he's kind. Then I thought, what if he says yes because he wants me to think he's kind? Then I thought, what if he says no and I've ruined elevators forever? I smiled softly. Elevators were already pretty charged. Her laugh came watery at the edges. I crouched in front of her, not touching until she looked at me. I didn't say yes to be kind, I said. Kind would have been calling you a rideshare and waiting until it came. Her eyes held mine. I said yes because when you asked me, part of me was relieved I finally had a reason not to leave you at the end of the night. She went still. Then she reached for me. Not a dramatic grab. Just her hand sliding along my jaw, thumb brushing near the corner of my mouth. I want you to kiss me again, she said. So I did. This kiss was deeper. Less question, more answer. Her knees parted enough for me to fit closer, and I kept one hand braced on the mattress, the other at her waist, feeling her inhale against me. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. Still sleeping on the floor, she murmured. I closed my eyes. I am trying to be a gentleman. I'm not asking you not to be. Her fingers traced my collar. I'm asking you not to use it as a hiding place. That hit somewhere tender. I looked at her, and she must have seen the truth before I said it. I'm rusty, I admitted, at wanting something and trusting it won't turn into a mistake. Her expression softened. Me too, she said. For a while we just stayed there, me kneeling between boxes of memory and moonlight, her hands on my shoulders, both of us breathing through the strange relief of being honest. Then she stood, opened her closet, and pulled down an old quilt. For the floor, she said. I took it from her. Our fingers brushed. She smiled. But if the judgmental ghost gets too loud, she added, you can come sit on the bed until she calms down. I looked at the glow-in-the-dark stars above us. Emily? Yeah? I don't think the ghost is the problem. Her blush answered before she did. I slept on the floor, technically. The quilt was under me, a crocheted blanket was over me, and a pillow shaped like a seashell supported half my neck and none of my dignity. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to find Emily's hand hanging off the edge of the mattress, fingers loose and open in the dark. I stared at it for a full minute like it was a complicated wiring diagram. Then she whispered, Ben? Yeah? Are you awake? No, this is my ghost voice. A soft laugh slipped out of her. The stars on her ceiling glowed faintly above us, a green little universe holding its breath. I can't sleep, she said. Me neither. A pause. Then her fingers moved just slightly. I reached up and took her hand. That was all. My back on the floor, her body tucked above me under the blankets, our hands linked in the narrow space between. It should have felt awkward. It did feel awkward. It also felt like a promise neither of us was ready to say in daylight. Her thumb brushed mine. Is this okay? She asked. I smiled into the dark. I was about to ask you that. It's okay. Then yes. For a while we listened to the old house settle. Pipes ticked. A car passed somewhere outside. Emily's breathing slowly evened out, but she didn't let go. Neither did I. When I woke again, pale morning light was pouring across the floor, and her mother was screaming downstairs. Not a danger scream. A very specific Midwestern mother-in-a-kitchen scream. Emily Ann Carter! Emily shot upright so fast the blanket slid to her waist. I sat up too, instantly regretting every decision my spine had made overnight. From downstairs came, "There is a man's shoe by my umbrella stand." Emily's eyes went wide. I looked toward the door. Only one? She slapped a hand over her mouth. Emily, Ann, Emily whispered. Do not laugh. I'm not. You are shaking. I'm in pain. You're smiling in pain. The bedroom door was still closed, thank God, but footsteps were already coming up the stairs. Emily scrambled out of bed, hair wild, still wearing the t-shirt and pajama shorts she had changed into, after politely making me turn around like we were at summer camp. My dress shirt was wrinkled beyond repair. My tie was somewhere on her desk. One of my socks had disappeared into a childhood memory. Mom! Emily called, voice cracking. Don't come in! The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, much more carefully, is everyone dressed? Emily closed her eyes. Yes. Define everyone, her mother said. I looked at Emily. Emily looked at me. Then she opened the door 3 inches. Hi, Mom. I couldn't see Mrs. Carter's face, but I could hear her reading the entire situation through that gap. The blush, the bedhead, me sitting on the floor with a seashell pillow in my lap like evidence. Oh, her mother said. Nothing happened, Emily blurted. I stood because sitting seemed worse and immediately hit my shoulder on a low shelf. A ceramic horse wobbled. I caught it. Mrs. Carter leaned slightly into view. She was petite, silver-haired, wearing a robe with blue hydrangeas and an expression that was trying very hard to be modern. Good morning, I said. Good morning, she replied. Emily looked like she wanted the stars to fall from the ceiling and bury us both. Her mother's gaze flicked to the floor bedding, then to Emily, then to me. Well, she said, there's coffee. And she walked away. Emily shut the door and pressed her forehead against it. I waited 3 seconds, then I said, I think she likes me. Emily turned around slowly. You caught the horse. That bought you at least Christmas. Breakfast was both worse and better than I expected. Mr. Carter was out golfing, which Emily whispered was either mercy or cowardice. Her mother, Linda, made eggs and toast while asking me questions with terrifying cheerfulness. So, Ben, Emily says you live in her building. Yes, ma'am. And you drove her here last night? Yes. At 1 in the morning? Yes. 2 hours? Yes. Linda smiled into her coffee. That's a long drive for a neighbor. Emily choked on orange juice. I looked across the table at her. She was flushed again, but this time there was laughter in her eyes too, something brave. Something that didn't want me to rescue her from the question. So I didn't. It is, I said. Linda's eyebrows lifted. Emily went still. I set down my coffee. But I was glad she asked. Emily's gaze softened so suddenly I nearly forgot her mother was 3 feet away holding a spatula like a courtroom exhibit. Linda looked between us, and her smile changed. Less teasing, more tender. Well, she said, turning back to the stove, then have another piece of toast. After breakfast, Emily took me to the lake. We walked 3 blocks through quiet streets, her wearing jeans and a faded sweatshirt, me in last night's suit pants and a borrowed t-shirt from her father that said, Lake Erie Walleye Classic. She laughed every time she looked at it. You know, I said, some women appreciate a man in formal fishing attire. I'm trying to be respectful, it's just very powerful. You're intimidated. I'm overwhelmed. The lake was gray-blue and endless under the morning sun. A breeze came off the water, cool enough that she tucked her hands into her sleeves. We sat on a bench facing the waves, shoulders almost touching. Then, not almost. She leaned into me. I put my arm around her slow enough that she could move away. She didn't. Instead, she rested her head against my shoulder. For a while, we watched the water without talking. The quiet between us felt different here than it had in the car. Less charged with what might happen, more full of what already had. I thought I'd feel embarrassed this morning, she said. Do you? A little. She tilted her face up to me. But mostly I feel calm. I looked down at her. The wind had pinked her cheeks. Her hair kept blowing into her mouth, and she kept failing to catch it. I brushed it back for her. Her eyes closed briefly at the touch. I don't want to make this smaller than it is, I said. She opened her eyes. I also don't want to rush you because we kissed in a hallway and held hands like scandalous teenagers under glow-in-the-dark stars. Her smile curved. That was pretty scandalous. The seashell pillow will never recover. She laughed, then reached for my hand on the bench. I don't want to make it small either, she said. I'm scared if we call it something, we'll break it. Maybe not calling it something is how we break it. That made her look at me. I swallowed. I'm not asking for a 5-year plan on a bench in your hometown, but I am asking if I can take you out when we get back. A real date, not a wedding escape, not a neighbor favor. A date where I pick the restaurant and you judge my playlists with your whole heart. Her fingers tightened around mine. You're asking me on a date while wearing a fish shirt. I wanted you to know the worst early. She looked at the water, trying not to smile too fast. Failing. Yes, she said. My chest loosened. Yes? Yes, Ben. Take me on a real date. She leaned closer, her mouth near mine. But I picked dessert. That seems fair. And I get one veto on the playlist. One. Per hour. Emily. She kissed me before I could object. It was brief, warm, and sure. No hallway hesitation this time. No question hiding under it. Just her hand on my chest and her lips on mine, choosing me in the morning light. When she pulled back, her smile was shy enough to undo me. There, she said. Now it's officially not small. I looked at her, at the lake behind her, at the future suddenly taking the shape of dinner reservations and elevator rides that would never be casual again. No, I said, and kissed her knuckles. It really isn't. The drive back to Columbus felt shorter, which made no sense until I realized we were both pretending not to be disappointed it would end. Emily sat beside me in the passenger seat wearing my jacket again. She had returned it twice. I had handed it back twice. By the third time, she stopped pretending. This is theft, I said. This is custody. Of my jacket? Our jacket. I glanced over. Our. She looked out the window, but I saw her smile reflected in the glass. Don't make it weird. I drove you 2 hours to your childhood bedroom, slept under plastic stars, met your mother, and got kissed by Lake Erie. I think weird has been established. She laughed, then reached across the console and laced her fingers with mine. That was new, not the touching. We had done that. But this was daylight, highway, no wedding champagne, no sleeping house around us. Just her choosing my hand because she wanted it. I lifted her knuckles to my mouth. She went quiet. When I glanced over, her eyes were on me with an expression that made the road feel suddenly irrelevant. What? I asked. Nothing. Emily, I'm just... She looked down at our hands. Trying to remember this exact version of you. What version? The one who kisses my hand like it's easy. It is easy. Her thumb moved over mine. For you, maybe. The tenderness in her voice stole every clever answer I had. We stopped halfway home at a diner with red vinyl booths and a pie case that looked more trustworthy than most banks. It wasn't the official date. Emily made that clear before we even sat down. This is not the date, she said, sliding into the booth. Because of my fish shirt? Partly, also because I'm wearing yesterday's mascara and your stolen jacket. I was going to say you look beautiful. She froze with the menu half open. I froze too because apparently honesty still had the power to surprise both of us. Then she lowered the menu slowly. You can't just say things like that in a diner. Why not? Because there are witnesses and pie. The pie can handle it. Her cheeks warmed, but she didn't hide behind the menu this time. Say it again. I leaned forward. You look beautiful. Her smile came softer than laughter. Okay. Okay? Okay, maybe this can be a pre-date. A rehearsal date. With pie. And witnesses. She nudged my shoe under the table. You're doing well so far. I should have been relaxed. Instead, I was happy in a way that made me nervous. Like if I moved too quickly, I'd scare it off. Like joy was a bird that had landed on the table between us, pecking at sugar packets. After lunch, as we neared our building, Emily's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. I pulled into the parking lot and killed the engine. Everything okay? She kept staring at the screen. Then she turned it toward me, a text from a name I didn't know. Nate. Heard you left the wedding with some guy. Classy. Guess I was right about you. There was more below it, but she locked the phone before I could read. My first instinct was anger. Clean, immediate, useless. My second was worse. To become careful again. To make room. To say the mature thing like, you don't owe me an explanation, and retreat into some noble distance where nobody could accuse me of wanting too much. Emily seemed to watch that instinct cross my face. Don't do that, she said. Do what? Disappear politely. I looked at her. She hugged my jacket around herself. Nate is the ex I told you about. He was at the wedding. I didn't know he'd be there until I saw him. You don't have to. Ben. I stopped. She took a breath. I want to tell you, not because I owe you a report, because I don't want him standing between us like a person we're both too polite to mention. The parking lot was quiet around us. Someone on the third floor was watering a plant over their balcony and missing the pot. I turned toward her fully. Okay, I said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. He made me feel like needing anything was unattractive, she said. So when I needed something, I'd pretend I didn't. Then I'd resent him for not noticing. Then he'd call me dramatic when I finally snapped. I listened, hating him a little and hating more that she expected herself to make the story reasonable. He saw me ask you for a ride, she continued. I think that bothered him. Because you needed help? No. Her eyes met mine. Because I asked you. That landed. I reached for her hand, then stopped short. Can I? Her expression softened. Yes. I took her hand. I'm not him, I said. I know. But I might still mess up. I know that too. That startled a laugh out of me. Comforting. She smiled faintly. I don't need perfect. I need honest. I need you to tell me when you're scared instead of becoming noble and distant. I looked down at our hands. I can try. Trying counts. What do you need right now? She blinked, like the question itself was unfamiliar. Then her fingers tightened around mine. I need you not to let a mean text make you regret yesterday. The answer came out of me before pride could edit it. I don't regret 1 second. Her eyes shone. Not the drive, I said. Not your mother. Not the floor. Not the hand-holding. Not the lake. Not asking you out. Her mouth trembled. And definitely not the kisses. That got me a small smile. Plural, she whispered. I'm optimistic. She leaned across the console and kissed me, slow and grateful, and not at all like someone hiding from an old wound. Her hand slid up my neck and mine found her waist over the jacket that was apparently ours now. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. That helped, she said. Good. But we should go inside before Mrs. Alvarez starts a group chat. I glanced toward the building. An elderly neighbor on the second-floor balcony immediately looked away from us and became fascinated by a dead fern. Too late, I said. Emily laughed, really laughed, and the sound cleared the last of Nate's shadow from the car. That evening, I picked her up for our real date. 2 doors apart, and I still showed up with flowers. I felt ridiculous standing in the hallway with a bouquet of yellow tulips, but when Emily opened her door, her face made ridicule impossible. She had changed into a green dress that made her eyes look unfair, and she had curled her hair in loose waves over one shoulder. For a second, I forgot the speech I had prepared about the restaurant, the reservation, the playlist compromise. She looked at the flowers, then at me. You knocked, she said. It's a date. We live on the same floor. I considered texting from outside your door, but that seemed cowardly. She took the tulips, smiling into them. You're very formal for a man who has seen my glow-in-the-dark ceiling. I contain multitudes. So you've mentioned. Behind her, her sister called, Is that the hot electrician? Emily closed her eyes. I looked over her shoulder. Depends who's asking. A woman with Emily's smile and sharper eyeliner appeared in the doorway. I'm Rachel. I approve of the flowers. Thank you. I also approve of you driving my sister home and not being weird. Emily made a strangled sound. Rachel! What? That's rare. I looked at Emily. I'm not being weird? You are, Emily said, but in a focused, charming way. Rachel pointed at me. Don't make her feel like she's too much. The hallway went still for half a beat. Emily's smile faltered. I didn't look away from Rachel. I won't, I said. Then I looked at Emily. And if I do by accident, I want her to tell me. Emily's eyes warmed in that way I was starting to crave. Rachel studied me, then stepped back. Okay, he can go. Emily grabbed her purse and pulled the door closed before her sister could conduct a background check. In the elevator, she stood beside me holding the tulips. Sorry, she said. For what? My family has no middle setting. I like them. They interrogated you. They love you. She went quiet. The elevator descended. Then she shifted closer until her shoulder touched my arm. I'm trying not to be embarrassed by being loved loudly, she said. I turned my hand palm up between us. She took it. You don't have to shrink it for me, I said. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. She didn't move. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed me once, right there under the security camera and Mrs. Alvarez's probable surveillance network. When she stepped back, her eyes were bright. Then take me to dinner, Ben, she said. I'm starving, and I want to be loved loudly. Dinner should have been ordinary. A corner table, 2 candles, pasta, a waiter who called everyone my friend, and refilled water like it was a personal mission. But sitting across from Emily in that green dress, watching her arrange the yellow tulips in an empty wine carafe because she couldn't leave them alone in the car like hostages, I understood ordinary had changed. So, she said, lifting her menu, first official date. Technically second if we count pie. We agreed pie was rehearsal. Then I'm feeling very prepared. She peered at me over the menu. You made a playlist, didn't you? I made 3. That is either adorable or alarming. One for the drive here, one for the drive back. One emergency playlist in case you hated the first 2. Her smile bloomed slowly. Ben. What? You're trying. I set my menu down. Too much? No. She reached across the table and touched my wrist. Exactly enough. The whole restaurant seemed to soften around that touch. Halfway through dinner, her phone buzzed again. I saw Nate's name flash before she turned the screen over. For 1 second, the old shadow crossed her face. Then she exhaled, picked up the phone, and turned it off. My chest tightened, but I waited. Emily looked at me. I don't want him at dinner with us. I covered her hand with mine. Good, I didn't make him a playlist. She laughed, and just like that, the shadow lost. After dessert, tiramisu her choice because apparently I was not emotionally ready to choose correctly, we walked instead of driving straight home. The night was warm. Downtown lights reflected in puddles from an earlier rain, and Emily slipped her hand into mine like she had been doing it for years. Outside a closed bookstore, she stopped in front of the dark window. What? I asked. She looked at our reflection. Me in a navy button-down, her in green, our joined hands hanging between us. I like how we look, she said. I glanced at the glass. Slightly overdressed for lurking outside a bookstore? Together, she said. The words settled over me. Together. Not neighbors, not almost. Not a wedding mistake that got complicated by a 2-hour drive and a childhood bedroom. Together. I turned toward her. I like it too. She studied me, her expression careful in a new way. Not guarded. Brave. I'm going to need things, she said. Sometimes. Reassurance. Patience. Someone who doesn't make me feel silly when I ask if we're okay. I can do that. You don't have to answer fast. I'm not answering fast. I've been thinking about you for 8 months. Her lips parted. There it was. The confession I hadn't planned to make beside a bookstore window with tiramisu still on my tongue. You have? I nodded. Every time you borrowed coffee filters and pretended it wasn't because you wanted to talk. She gasped. I did need coffee filters. 4 times in 1 week? I was going through something. You were going through my pantry. She laughed, then stepped closer. I thought about you too. My heart did something embarrassingly young. When? I asked. In the elevator, in the laundry room, when you helped Mrs. Alvarez carry groceries and didn't know I saw. Her fingers toyed with mine. And once when you came home from work with sawdust in your hair and smiled at me like I was the best part of your day. You were. Her eyes shone. I cupped her face, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Our kiss in front of that dark bookstore was nothing like the first one. That first kiss had been a question. This one was an answer written clearly enough for both of us to read. When we came up for air, Emily whispered, "Are we doing this?" I brushed my thumb along her cheek. "I am." She smiled. "Good. Because I am too." 3 weeks later, Nate stopped being a shadow and became a closed door. Emily blocked his number while sitting on my couch, wearing fuzzy socks and eating takeout noodles from the carton. She didn't make a ceremony of it. She just looked at the last message, shook her head, and said, "I don't want to keep proving I'm allowed to be happy." Then she blocked him. I kissed her temple. She leaned into me and whispered, "Thank you for not trying to do that for me." "You didn't need me to." "No." She looked up, smiling. "But I like that you're here." "I'm very here." "I noticed. You're stealing my noodles." "Our noodles," I said. She laughed so hard she dropped a piece of broccoli on my shirt. By the following spring, the elevator in our building had become ridiculous. We could no longer stand in it like normal adults. There was too much history in the buttons. Too many almost touches remembered by the walls. Too many mornings where she kissed me before work and told me I had electrical tape on my sleeve. Too many evenings where I found her waiting barefoot in the hallway because she'd had a hard day and didn't want to pretend she hadn't. We still had separate apartments for a while. Then slowly, without announcing it, her camera chargers migrated to my outlets. My work boots started living by her door. Her favorite mug appeared in my cabinet, then accused all my other mugs of lacking personality. One Saturday, I opened my closet and found my suit jacket hanging on her side. I stared at it. Emily came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "I was wondering when you'd notice. My jacket has a side. Our jacket has a home." I turned in her arms. "Is this your way of moving in?" She shrugged, but her eyes were nervous. "Maybe. Is that too much?" There it was again, the old fear, smaller now, but still asking if she had to shrink herself to be loved. I took her hands and kissed both palms. "Emily," I said, "I drove 2 hours because you asked me to take you home. I slept on a floor under glow-in-the-dark stars because I wanted to stay. I have been waiting for you to take up more space in my life since before I admitted it." Her mouth trembled. "So that's a yes?" "That is a very loud yes." She laughed through tears and I pulled her into me, right there between my work shirts and her stolen jacket. A year after that night, we drove back to Lakewood for her parents' anniversary. This time, I packed a toothbrush. Linda opened the door, saw us holding hands, and smiled like she had known from the first shoe by the umbrella stand. The guest room was still full of boxes, but Emily's old room had fresh sheets, and nobody pretended I was sleeping on the floor. Before bed, we lay beneath those faded plastic stars, her head on my chest, my fingers moving through her hair. "Remember when you asked where you were sleeping?" she murmured. "I remember you blushing so hard I almost proposed out of confusion." She laughed, then lifted her face to mine. "I'm glad you stayed." I kissed her softly. "I'm glad you asked." Outside, the lake wind moved through the trees. Inside, the stars above us barely glowed anymore, but it didn't matter. Emily's hand was over my heart, my jacket was folded over the chair, and the woman who once feared needing too much had fallen asleep in my arms like love was finally a safe place to rest. What would you have done if someone you secretly wanted asked you to drive them home and then blushed when you asked, "So where am I sleeping?" Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.